What's up and welcome back to the Kinda Funny Screencast Loki breakdown, this time to the penultimate episode of Season 2, Episode 5 out of 6. It's always stressful around this point of a Disney Plus MCU show because you're like, all right, there's only so much time to wrap up some stories. Are they gonna pull it off? More often than not, they don't. But something tells me that this one might be the exception to the rule there. Of course, I am Tim Geddes. I am joined today by the Lock himself, Roger Picorni.
You know, next episode, Tim, it's going to be giant space laser. That's what I'm thinking. Giant blue, maybe red space laser, maybe some flying, maybe some magic.
Now, here's the thing. All jokes aside.
Yeah.
I think we might get a giant green space laser.
Oh, interesting.
Inside of it. You know what I'm talking about?
Why?
The timeline.
Oh, and it's going to turn green.
It's going to turn green.
Oh, my God, for Loki?
For Loki, baby.
Oh, my God. Okay.
He's writing the story now.
Yeah, he is. He's rewriting everything.
It's pretty wild, pretty nuts, man. We have a lot to talk about. It's going to be a lot of fun. Of course, each and every week here on the Kinda Funny Screencast, we break down the latest in TV, movies, and trailers. This episode, we're actually doing a little bit of both of those things because Marvel decided to drop the Echo trailer today. Because we're doing our big Kinda Funny cross IGN Extra Life extravaganza right now, we aren't able to do a proper actual reaction to the Echo trailer, but Roger and I have both watched it, so we're going to give our thoughts on that as well here, which should be a lot of fun. You can watch the show on youtube.com/kindafunny or roosterteeth.com. You can also get it as a podcast by searching your favorite podcast service for Kinda Funny Screencast, and we'll be right there for you. If you go to patreon.com/kindafunny, you can get the show ad-free, you can get a whole bunch of bonus content, and you can be a Patreon producer, just like James Hastings, Jedi Master Deadpool, Casey Andrew, and Nathan Lamoth have done. We appreciate all of you so very, very much. A lot of people have been asking if we are like, what's going on with entertainment at Kinda Funny? The answer is a lot. There's a lot happening, and it's hard to cover everything, and in fact, it's impossible to cover everything. We just wrapped up our Saw in review. Next week, we will be returning to the MCU in review, where we'll be doing Captain Marvel 2, The Marvels, and following that will be Loki with the whole crew of me, Andy, Greg, and Nick, where we're going to officially rank Season 2 in the pantheon of MCU projects. Invincible's out. Gen V just finished. Unfortunately, we don't have actual scheduled time to talk about any of those things, but I just want everyone to know I am trying to figure out a time for a screencast in the next couple of weeks. At the very least, talk about Invincible a little bit because there's a lot of cool, fun stuff happening over there. But enough about all of that. I want to get into it. Loki, it's happening. Continues to be great, I think at least. But Roger, I'm interested in what you think. We haven't had you on this show yet. We've been having different guests every week, which, by the way, next week for the finale, I thought it'd be a little bit fun to get a couple of people back that are in studio here. So we're going to get Roger, Joey, and Blessing. Who will all join me to talk about the finale next week, which should be a lot of fun.
Our time auras will come together.
Oh, yeah, the coordinates.
Yeah, exactly.
That's going to be really interesting, and that'll make as much sense as it does in the show. But fuck it. Anyways, enough about that stuff. Raj, what have you thought about Loki so far?
Yeah, no, this is an interesting one because I think as a lot of people, I've been kind of burnt by the MCU in total over the last few years, right? And I think that I was very positive on Season 1. So going into Season 2, I was pretty positive, but it was still the big question mark of, the showrunner left the show and they're changing things. It's like, okay, how is this show going to rise to the occasion? Is in this we're setting up the Kang Dynasty, what is this actually going to be? And I've been very impressed by the season. I think it's a good sign that I'm at the end of it now. We're at the, penultimate episode right now, and it's like, wow, I feel like this show can keep on going for 5-6 episodes this season because it just feels like we're just getting started. And I think that's a positive, but it's also a negative, which I think we can get into. But yeah, this season has been very, very good for me. I've liked all the things that they have gone with, especially with focusing on kind of in a lot of ways, a smaller story, but also it's a bigger story. But I feel like we've gone to less places. We have kind of delved into less timelines in a certain sense. We've kind of just focused on Loki and the TVA, and it feels very centered and focused this season, which honestly, going from Season 1 to Season 2, it's like, oh, wow, we can do anything. We can go anywhere. We can go to the Fox dimension. We can go, oh, my God, where are we going to go with the season? So to see it kind of a little bit more restrained, I thought was a very positive thing. And yeah, I think has led me to to this place where I thought this was going to be eight episodes, so I misheard that. But I was I was watching this episode and I was blown away by it, and especially that finale that they gave us everything we needed from this episode, from seeing the different timelines and seeing kind of the origin stories of these characters, at least in their branch timelines. I don't know how that works. We're gonna have to discuss that and figure that out. But but then it still kind of came back to the core of the show, and it didn't feel like it went in too many different directions. So I've been very positive this season, and I was very positive on this episode specifically.
Yeah, I mean, me too. Overall, like I keep saying that Loki is one of my favorite MCU projects, and season 1 specifically, I put like in my top 10, debatably top 5 of all of it, including the movies and everything. And the further we get into season 2, the more I'm like, man, just Loki overall, it really has earned that spot. The thing I'm most impressed with the show is that every time I think that they're riding themselves into a corner or doing something that I'm not going to like, they end up just going a completely different direction, and it's satisfying to me. Like, I feel like so much of the time stuff just simply doesn't make sense. The loom as a concept is really weird. Like, there's a lot of stuff that I'm like, what the fuck? Like, it feels like you don't know what you're doing, so you're just kind of throwing stuff out there.
Some jargon.
But it also feels like they know that. And I feel like what I'm enjoying is that they're not letting that stuff get in the way of the characters and the actual storylines going on, where, god damn, Loki is an amazing character that they somehow were able to build up, break down so many different times. And we're now dealing with a variant of Loki different than the one originally in the timeline that died. But I remember when we first heard about the show happening, and it was like, all right, it's going to be Loki in the TVA. It's like, cool, that's a great concept, but like, you just killed Loki and you're telling me that it's after the Avengers won, so all the great character development from Dark World through to Infinity War of Loki, we're just gonna like write off, and he's gonna watch it in this weird time mind theater thing, and like that's how he gets caught up.
Yeah.
And I'm like, all right, we'll see if that works. Well, here we are a couple of years later, and I think that they earned the absolute hell out of this Loki becoming a very similar character to the one that we saw die in Infinity War. And it reminds me of when the variant stuff and multiverse stuff is done right. And like, we've talked so much about it being done wrong recently, but I feel like with No Way Home, the scene of the 3 Peters on the rooftop where they realized they all lost somebody. And like they had that conversation about Ben and power and responsibility and all of that. Like, I love that feels like we're seeing it here with this Loki grappling with glorious purpose and getting to the point where he learned. Like this is the Loki that weeks ago in the timeline for him, he was enslaving Earth and humans. Yeah. And now he's willing to give up everything for his human friends. Yeah. It's beautiful.
Yeah, and that is what makes this show rise above everything. I think it was the last episode that kind of like, you take for granted the fact that Loki's a god, right? Because like the word god means kind of nothing in the MCU a little bit. Like, it's just like, it's superpowers and they're in space and they kind of have a weird society, and like that's what that is. But like that, I think it was maybe last episode, the week episode before that, when like Sylvie and him were talking about like, oh no, like they're actual gods now. Like they're rewriting this timeline. They have that power. That was something that I just did not expect from the show a little bit of like, I just thought that gods was just going to be an easy way for them to be like, this guy has superpowers. And now it's like, no, now we're dealing with the consequences of, billions and trillions of lives. And going down that direction has been really interesting.
And to that point, I think a really great piece of evidence to back up what I was saying earlier of like, they throw things at us and I'm like, I don't know how much I buy it. And then I expect them to go away with it and they go a different way that I'm like, oh shit, like, good thing I'm not writing the show, because the time when we see all the timelines start to like disappear and whatever, it's like we're supposed to feel something, but at the end of the day, it just feels like dots and numbers and nothing that really, it doesn't feel like people. It doesn't feel like humanity and populations being wiped out. Throughout the episode, seeing B-15 at one point, like looking and just being like, those are all people. And like seeing how she has been mind wiped for so long, and like she moments ago was pruning these timelines, but now she realizes the reality of that and what that means. That was like pretty good, but to get where we're at now and like actually seeing these different branch timelines and seeing the real life that Mobius has and the real life that all these people have, I think that this episode alone really cemented, oh, those lines are people. And it doesn't need to be a Fox universe. It doesn't need to be Sony universe. It could just be like, no, like there are these timelines with lives and with people with stories that might be pulled into these other things. But I don't know. It just kind of gave like a sense of space to the timelines where it makes more sense than it ever has. And I am shocked to say that because it's also more confusing than it's ever been. But like they're having fun with the OB, like the snake eating its own tail type stuff, and Loki literally like this episode having him see himself reading the book.
Yeah.
And then time slipped out. It's like, oh my God, this is awesome.
And realizing he just talked to himself essentially.
Yeah.
I think I think they did a great job this episode specifically of finally putting faces to the lines and the timelines. If you were, you know, we've seen these timelines disappear. It's like, yeah, does this mean anything? Like, where this doesn't mean anything because they're just gonna fix it all. It doesn't really matter. I do think I would like a few more episodes or a little bit more time in a few of these timelines or one of these timelines or this timeline. Like, I think we got enough, but I think a little bit more would have went a long way because we are. You know, this episode does a lot, right? Like, we are establishing a lot of characters' backstories. We are establishing, you know, the time slipping, the OB, and, like, the TVA. Like, we're doing a lot this episode that if we just slowed down just a little bit for me, if we had maybe a, 7-episode run instead of a 6, and we just stayed in this universe and felt, like, kind of the fear of all these characters, I think that would have fully, like, checked off the complaint of, like, I just don't feel like these timelines matter in a grand scheme of things. And I think by the ending of it, I got to a place where they matter, but I still don't think that they matter enough for the kind of great, grand fear that all of these things are going to disappear, quote unquote.
What I enjoy about it, and I totally feel you, and like I do not disagree, but I feel that what I enjoy about what season 2 of Loki has done is show how limitless all of this is, and that there are limitless timelines that we're talking about. So sitting in any one of these longer than we did, I don't really feel like would be too necessary because the point is understand it a little bit and then it's going to go away. And like the spaghetti effect of like, I mean, we're now seeing essentially the Thanos snap dusting of people, but like because of how they built this, seeing all these different branch timelines, we're realizing, like we can apply this to limitless timelines and dimensions and multiverses, whatever out there.
I think that might be maybe just like the core complaint that I have of this, of just like, I don't even know if you can fix it necessarily, of just like, when you're talking about everything, you're talking about nothing to a certain extent, right?
100%.
When it's like every timeline's gonna go away, it's like, is it really? Like you're saying that Loki's gonna go away? Like I don't really get that. So that's why I liked this episode when Sylvie is sitting there with we're gonna talk about that a lot more later, but like when she's sitting there listening to the record and the record shop's going away and you feel the fear of everybody around her. That was great. That's my only complaint of just like just a little bit more. But I think they did a good job of rectifying that in one episode, which that's commendable, right?
Yeah, and we're talking about having one left. I mean, this episode we did not see any form of Kang. We did not see Ravonna at all. We didn't see Brad's character. We heard Brad's character though a couple times. I don't know if you saw this. The arcade machine was an arcade game based on the movie that Brad was like acting in.
That's
timeline.
Cool.
And like you hear his voice a little bit, and then in the post credits. Like, after the credits, it's just audio only, but you hear Rafael Casal being like, you died. Like, insert coin to continue or something that. And so I'm like, all right, cool. Like, they're having some fun with this. And, like, I do like the kind of video game nature of, like, you died, try again. Because that is what Loki is doing here. But I also just love this episode starting with, like, the end of the last episode, right? Like, the time loom kind of, like, coming over them, the dam breaking. We get the Marvel Studios logo with like really like stressful sound effects underneath it. And then we see the Loki theme and like the LOKI, like they were like disappearing.
Yeah.
So sick.
It was really cool. Yeah, that was getting right back into it and starting off that episode that way was really great. Yeah, for sure.
And another thing that I did enjoy about the kind of timeline jumping, season 1, one of the coolest things I thought was the DB Cooper situation where it's like, oh, Loki was actually that guy that disappeared. And then in this, the Alcatraz stuff, I popped the fuck off.
Yeah,
like,
so is that a real thing that happened?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. There was a group of people that escaped Alcatraz and then were never found. like ever.
That's really funny.
And so it's like that's such a fun like that like the guy Frank like that is you can Google Frank Alcatraz and like that's a whole thing, man. And he was like a bank robber.
Yeah,
like it's so cool that they tied that all in, and it's fun and it adds to the whole thing. But what I enjoyed even more, and this is a weird little subtle thing, but the B-15 character was a doctor. Did you notice the timeline she was in?
She was in 2012, right?
2012 New York.
Yeah. So that's the Avengers, right?
That's the Avengers battle.
Oh, okay.
But they went real out of their way to talk about how this girl hurt herself falling out of a tree or something. So maybe I'm reading too much into this, but like MCU knows what they're doing. They're not going to like put a timeline 2012 New. Anytime they've done 2012 New York, we know exactly what that means.
Exactly.
So for them to play it off that like it wasn't that and to drive attention to it, I'm interested in that. Like I'm interested in, is this a timeline where the Battle of New York didn't happen for some reason?
Interesting.
And is that because of Loki's placement? I don't know, but like I just think that like them doing that was on purpose. I just don't know what they're trying to say yet. Yeah,
no, or if maybe Loki had some form of like maybe he hurt her or something with his invasion or whatever it is. That is interesting because I did notice that. Now let's talk about the branch nature of this all really quick because of course that the whole explosion happens. Are they trying to say that like this is like actually the origins of these characters, or is this just a branch? Like, hey, we're just throwing them anywhere. Like, that's the part. Of course, with Owen Wilson and the jet skis, like, yeah, that makes sense. But it is a branch timeline, so I'm confused about all of that.
I think this is their branch timeline.
Okay.
Like, I think this. So when the failsafe happened,
yeah,
right in the beginning, like I think that was resetting them back to where they were, like sending them back to their original time. Because this is something that I've had a lot of struggles trying to keep straight, and like it is a perfect example of don't overthink it. Yeah. It's like it is easier to just take it for what it is, which is because of how the TVA works, all times happening at the exact same time.
Yeah.
There's not like the moment you think about it as a timeline, you're already doing it wrong.
Yeah.
So that's why I think this episode did a good job of showing they're in 2012, they're in the 90s, they're in the 60s or whatever the Alcatraz thing was. Like, but all those are happening at the exact same time.
Yeah.
So this is Mobius.
Yeah.
Like that character we saw him with the kids and stuff, which the kids are interesting.
In what way?
Two brothers.
Yeah.
That seem a little bit like one's a little bit more persnickety and one's like supposed to be looking out. It was like, are you trying to build some Thor Loki stuff, especially with the statues of all the gods that we saw a couple episodes ago at the World Fair with Mobius? Like, there's something going on there, or else it'd be just kind of weird. No, other thing. Sorry, I'm like all over the place.
I love this. This is an education for Roger Picordi. I'm just like, I watched the episode, but you watched the episode a different way.
Yeah, no, I'm such a nerd about this stuff. But what I thought was very interesting about Mobius was a couple stuff with his branch timeline. 2022 was when he's from, which I think is cool because that is much later than the 2012 or a lot of the other timelines we've seen. And Mobius,
also from Cleveland, Ohio. That was pretty cool.
That too, exactly.
And especially like the character he played, I was like, that's the most Cleveland, Ohio man I've ever seen in my life. So that was great. That was hilarious.
And yeah, that's so funny. But what I love about it is it builds off of everything we know about his character from season 1, about the jet skis. And there's my favorite line in Loki is, it's a beautiful union of form and function. Like, so good.
Yeah, bringing that back was awesome.
So good. But all that stuff I thought was great. But what was really interesting to me, in the same way that the 2012 New York, that's important, 2022, for Mobius, a single dad. How did he lose his wife?
Yeah, that makes sense. God,
was it the blip? Was it that's pretty cool.
Yeah,
you know, and
really
like
cool.
that those little things, I'm like, they're doing this for a reason. And like, what is it building to? I don't really know. And some of it they don't need to explicitly ever call out. I just think that it's cool that like that could be, and that would totally add up.
Yeah, it might just also
is.
be them flexing a little bit. But like, we can just put times, and you know exactly what happened. Like, you can just you guys will pop off by seeing 2012. We don't even need to do anything. You can just know that could happen or could have already happened. You never know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think that's pretty cool. And there's definitely a lot going on that I'm still questioning. Like Obi's character. I mean, first off, let me just say, my favorite thing about this season so far is every theory I've had has been wrong. Like everything, I feel like, oh, clearly this is happening, and it doesn't, and that feels good. Like I feel like they're in control. I was like, oh, Obi's clearly bad. He's not. maybe he is in some way, and there's still room for a lot of things, but like he didn't have this like villain heel turn that I expected him to have around this time in the show. So that to me I think is cool, but the setup of him, one of the more confusing things right now is the idea that him and Victor Timely kind of like taught each other how to make this all happen. And they're showing us that that's happening more and more now because Loki time slipping, and now in the TVA time actually is moving. So again, now not thinking about it as a timeline, thinking of it as just now that that's broken, they can access those times in different ways.
Yeah.
So while Avengers Endgame set up the whole river situation that the Ancient One was like, no, it goes here and it breaks off. We're now at a point that that's not true. It is more Back to the Future. Yeah. It is more you can actually affect things, which is, OP as hell.
Yeah.
OB is something. But them setting up the OB Victor Timely like relationship last episode of their handshake and all of that has to come back somehow. And I think it's really weird that OB in the branch timeline was in the TVA, but it wasn't the TVA. It's literally the same set.
Yeah, exactly. No, yeah, and that's like the thing that I'm trying to gather is like, is that actually the area, or is it kind of like he in wherever the TVA is, like this is where he feels at home, so they were able to like create that or manifest that. Like the rules are just whatever they want to make it to be. But that was really cool just to see that, and also see the fact that he is a science fiction writer and also a scientist and stuff like that. That was just really fun.
See, I saw it more of like if we want to talk about like character and character building from that aspect of like them showing off, even though their minds have been wiped a countless amount of times, there was something about them that still stayed, right? Mobius still loved the speedboat
jet
ski stuff. B-15, like her caring about people, right? Like and then we learn she's a doctor. Obi, who is like one of the like a genius, most unorganized person ever. Like both of his stations are like kind of a mess. The one that's kind of weird and different is I forget the guy, but the guy that we learned escaped from Alcatraz, where like I didn't really see enough of like he likes to steal stuff or whatever. But
he had all the stones.
Yeah, I was gonna say
that's
like
true.
That was the thing of like he opened up the drawer and it had all that stuff in it. So I guess that actually does kind of explain it. Of maybe he just stole them all.
Yeah,
that's funny. Okay, cool. Yeah, no, I that was really fun. That for me, like all the reveals, like, of course, I think we all kind of expected Owen Wilson to have some jet ski affiliation there, but having OB like be a science fiction writer and also just kind of be a loser was really fun. And like also like Loki immediately going there and he's like, okay, well, this is fiction, so like let's just figure it out together and like and going from that, and then he goes into the Owen Wilson time. I'm just keep on calling him Owen Wilson. I will never call him Mobius. Going to the Owen Wilson timeline, and then OB coming in and just having the glitchy version of the temp. That was one of the funniest visual gags for me, at least, of seeing this incredible VFX just sliding like a fucking meme. Like it just looked like a shit post.
It's like whenever Kevin and I bring up a JPEG on OBS. Yeah,
exactly. You're
So
recropping as the show is live. Like that was hilarious to me.
And I love that. I love the line about like, oh, it took me like 18 months or 19 months or whatever that was.
Yeah. But what was it? I lost my job and my wife left me.
Yeah. It's like it's just fucking great.
But I was kind of confused about that because when he met OB, he seemed to be alone already, so I was confused by that line a little bit. But I just felt so bad for him because he looked so disheveled. It was like, oh man, this poor man.
Yeah. One thing that I think is interesting is like, what do we know to be true, and how wrong are we? Because the TVA,
forget everything you
was
know,
100% was introduced to us last season, right? Then it ends and we get the reveal of, okay, cool, there's He Who Remains, and he's been controlling this the entire time. And then we get the end of it and like his statue's there and we're like, what the fuck is happening? And just realize, oh, it's actually back in the past.
Yeah.
Like it's not like the future, which it could have been. What's interesting there is it seems like this season, now that we're 5 episodes in, they're setting Loki up to be He Who Remains.
Yeah.
Like to be the new writer of the story. Was he always? Like, did Loki create the TVA?
Yeah.
And this is where time gets really stupid sometimes, but it's like with what we're seeing about the whole snake eating its own head or tails type stuff, I can see them building towards, especially now that he mastered time slipping, which is hype as fuck, by the way.
Oh my God.
Are they going to set it up that He Who Remains, like, I'm not necessarily saying that Loki is in charge. It still could be that He Who Remains, that we're still in the game. We're still in the plan. Like, this was always part of the plan, is for all this to happen. And that even, like, the end game stuff, all of that was, like, predetermined for a certain way, like, whatever. Because the end of this episode, right, is him time slipping back into the TVA before somebody goes out for the spacewalk to the loom.
Yeah.
But who is it?
So what are you thinking?
Is it because we saw 2 of those walks? One was Mobius going out. He didn't get rid of the card. And then one was Victor Timely, and he did.
Interesting.
Oh, that's a good point.
So depending on which one that is, I don't know what that's going to change or what it's going to mean.
Yeah.
But, like,
does he go by himself? Like, it's interesting because you think he's going to stop there, or that's just showing like, hey, that's where we're at, and he can do whatever he wants now. Like, do you think the next episode starts with him staying in that moment and trying to fix it there, or is it just a stepping stone for him?
I think it's starting there.
Okay.
Yeah. Like,
wow.
Which I don't know what that means. And again, like, at this point, I'm done even trying to guess because like I don't know what they're gonna do. But it's just I love what they've set up here because there's so much like things that like specifically Obi's office looking the same. It's like, oh shit, they're really building stuff that like it would make sense that Loki's adventures with this group of friends turns into the TVA. Eventually. And when I say eventually, I actually mean in the past, but because it's all happening at the same time, that's just how this works.
Is there any way that he undoes season 1's ending?
Yeah.
Do you think that like completely? Like he
Totally.
he just prunes Sylvie or whatever it is, or just sets them off into a different path. And then we just kind of start season 3 where season 1 ended pretty much. Like
maybe.
Yeah, I don't that's my concern is I don't think they will do that because like I feel like that might be a little bit too much of like, okay, well, what was the point of this season? Even though there is a point of it, but like I think that needs to move forward. It's just a matter of like what point do we move forward? How far do we go back?
Again, I'm not too worried about the moving forward because we're talking about all time happening at once.
Yeah.
So it's like, you said this earlier, but like the show's about nothing and everything. The show's so small, but it's so big. And like, that's a pro and a con. I think with the way that the show's set up and with how they've been doing it, it's a pro overall. Like, I feel like they know what they're doing and they're balancing that. Like, but I think that the assembling the team moment of this, of him going and convincing all these people, including Sylvie, it took her a lot, but including Sylvie, to get together, those character moments, I feel, that is moving forward. That this is creating rules for a TVA. I mean, look, there's hella rumors about Deadpool 3 involving TVA and things like that. Like, I think that, like, a better understanding of the TVA being a good thing is going to be good for the MCU overall.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so hard to even theorize about the show because it gets so timey-wimey and like your head starts hurting and you're like, okay, well, if this thing happens, then this thing happens. But I think I have faith in whatever they end this series with moving forward and feeling like, because my biggest fear, which again, I don't think they will do, is losing the character growth that we've had this season for most of these characters. I don't want to have Loki continuously grow. And I think that's kind of an issue with Sylvie this season of like, she just took such a backseat this show, like to the point where like you watch the season, you're like, she was a main character last season? Like that's wild to think about how much she was in season 1, how important she was, and just how she's just in the background this season.
It's definitely a bummer. I think one of my least favorite things about the season is the lack of Sylvie because I really like Sylvie. I like that actress, and I loved her character in the first season. And I think it's really interesting that she fucking kills He Who Remains. Like that's such a wild thing for the MCU to set up, especially meta-wise of us as an audience, understanding this is Kang, understanding this is the guy being set up as the next Thanos. Like, that's wild that they did this. But the longer we get into it, I just really appreciate this season's almost Severance-like take on what it means to be human and if that even matters. Like, what it means to own your own identity. And, like, Mobius kind of having shown that he doesn't want his real life. He wants his fake life because to him that's real. Miss Minutes being this AI that wants what she wants and what that means, but she was programmed to want those things. Or was she, Yeah. And then He Who Remains scripting people's lives, including his partner, Ravonna. And then Loki trying to fight back against all of this. Sylvie being like, I literally just want choice. I don't care if I lose. I just want choice. I feel like when you present it that way, I'm okay with Sylvie taking a back seat just because it's almost her choice to do that. You get what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
It's a little weird, but it's like, and we'll have to see how they like put a bow on it at next week. But I didn't expect such real story from this of like really like kind of questioning like what makes you you.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. And I think that's why the show is top tier echelon MCU. I still think, in my opinion, even whatever happens next episode I'm sure it's going to be great. I would like this to be a little longer. I think we're just scratching the surface with this everything that they're setting up and also the character dynamics that just a few more episodes I think would have gone such a long way with understanding of Sylvie's motives a little bit deeper and just living with these characters, breathing with them, because we talk about the iDream review a lot, but I think that is probably the thing that I agree with most about it is that it is very story heavy. We're moving forward. We're doing all these things. So to kind of sit back and breathe a little bit would have been very helpful. But I'm excited for whatever they set up, and I have faith that it's going to stick the landing.
Well, I'm going to keep talking. I know. You say it now.
I say it now.
You've said it every damn show. But we're going to take a quick break for the sponsor read. But when we get back, we're going to keep going about Loki and Echo. This episode is brought to you by BetterHelp. Do you ever feel like your brain is getting in its own way? I can't even count the amount of nights I lose sleep just because I can't stop thinking and my brain just won't stop talking. It turns out one great way to make those racing thoughts go away is to talk through them. Therapy gives you a great place to do that so you can get out of your negative thought cycles and find some mental and emotional peace. And it can give you the tools to find more balance in your life so you can keep supporting others without leaving yourself behind. Some of my best friends use BetterHelp and love how helpful it can be for learning positive coping skills and how to set boundaries. It empowers you to be the best version of yourself, and it isn't just for those who've experienced major trauma. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist and switch therapist anytime for no additional charge. You can make your brain your friend with BetterHelp. Visit betterhelp.com/kindafunny today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/kindafunny. BetterHelp.com/kindafunny. Barrett.
What up?
You had a fun little anecdote you wanted to drop.
Yeah, so I wanted to talk about and break down a little bit of the scene with Sylvie in the record store after Loki tries to grab her to get her ethereal magic, whatever the hell it's called, to bring the gang back together, and she essentially tells him to go fuck off and let the other TVA members kind of just like live their lives, and he shouldn't be the one to give them that choice and all this stuff. She goes to the record store, is looking for nothing in particular, and the shopkeep there is like, oh, like rough day here. Here's something I've got for you that I think will hit you in the right way. And the record he hands her is the Velvet Underground's Loaded, which was the biggest pop for me in the episode. That is one of my favorite albums of all time. One of my first memories I have is listening to that album with my dad in his car, listening to one of the tracks, Rock and Roll. And the song she puts on from that record is the final track on the record, Oh Sweet Nothing. Which obviously with the scene and how that plays out, like some of the lyrics the lyrics from the chorus is "Oh sweet nothing, she ain't got nothing at all," and I feel like that works very well with everything being turned into spaghetti and everything kind of turning into nothing. And a lot of the verses are talking about these different people who don't even have like clothes on their back and having to leave their lives and stuff. And it works really well for the scene. But then thinking about the show as a whole, like Sylvie's argument and all of this stuff, and of talking about these people who were kind of forced out of their lives, and that's a kind of regular theme that Lou Reed, the main lyricist for the Velvet Underground, would write about. Is like a lot of, he's like the godfather of punk, so he wrote a lot about counterculture, a lot about like trans people and like LGBT people and all this stuff, and a lot of this song is people being forced out of their lives and having to start anew and kind of finding the hopefulness and beauty in that. And so I thought it was a very interesting song to play after Sylvie goes on this whole like don't force these, don't make these people like be thrown away from their lives, and like they should be able to just stay where they're at. And I thought that was like a very interesting thematic kind of like connection to all of that. And then also like just thinking about the whole like crazy grand timeline of itself, right? Of being able to choose of like where we go from here and finding the beauty and like all the nothingness that might come of all of this, right? So I wanted to shout that out because that was really cool. The ding I have to give it though is that Sylvie does put the record needle on the first track of the record, and this is the last track of the record. If that was accurate, it would have played "Who Loves the Sun," which was more of a what?
The sun will shine on us again, brother.
There you go. But that is definitely more of a melancholy heartbreak song.
Sorry,
but,
it's a branch timeline. It's different. He did
oh shit, Roger, you got me. Yeah, you got me.
They're trying to show
record.
you. Yeah, they're trying to show you that it's a variant.
Either way, that is Barrett Courtney's music corner for y'all today.
I love it. That's super cool. But I mean, I was joking about it, but the sun will rise thing, like I feel like it's going to be. I was talking to, who the fuck was I talking to last week? Who was on the show? Was that Bless last week? Joey. It was Joey. Yeah. I was saying that I feel like I am now more convinced than ever that this Loki is going to be like one of the main reps of the MCU in Secret Wars or in whatever the big project is. That like, I don't know anyone will ever be Robert Downey Jr., but Tom Hiddleston is just so damn good.
Yeah.
And like, God, I could watch him flip his hair
I love it.
1,000 more times.
Oh my God.
You know what I mean? And we're going to see it. And I can't wait every single time. But the way they've developed his character, and I already said this earlier today, but like, you know, in multiversal ways of like, there's a constant of this Loki character. I love the love that he has for Thor, his brother, in this, and the long, like the way he's talked about him a couple times this season and the way he's told the stories. I can't wait for their reunion. And I don't expect it in the show or anything, but like, when it happens, it's going to hit so hard. It's going to be so good. And I'm just really excited to see like how far they can push this Loki character in a way that still feels believable and fun. But like, I'm just really excited about a potential where it's like, it's Hugh Jackman and Tobey Maguire and Tom Hiddleston's Loki. Like, that's just very, very cool to me.
Yeah, it's wild because this is a character that I was like, I'm fine with. I get the hype, but like I also don't get the hype. But this show has really solidified him as easily like you're so right. When he pops up in Secret Wars, when he is like reveals like, oh crap, like he's been doing this all behind the scenes or whatever. Like that is going to be such a big guaranteed pop for us nerds.
Yeah, no, it's gonna be great.
And then my mom's gonna be like, wait, didn't he die? I'm like, it's a whole thing. Don't worry about it, Mom. You don't have my Disney Plus login. Don't worry.
But they're gonna use the line about the sun shining on them again.
Oh, yeah,
it's gonna be freaking great.
Absolutely.
I want to give a major shout out again to the visual language of this show. I feel like MCU is at its best, and superhero everything's at its best. But I think MCU specifically is at its best whether it's set design, costume design, but more importantly, VFX design. It backs up the themes and just like tells a story itself and all that stuff. And it doesn't always do that. Sometimes it's weird. But we've talked so much about Loki having great production design and costumes and colors and all that. But the tempad, the way the time doors look, all of that and the cubes and everything, it feels so good. But this new spaghettification.
Yeah.
Shout out to them for doing it because
it's so smart.
Doctor Strange having the look of his magic and the Iron Man HUD, right? That now it's like the most overdone thing ever, but like, yo, that was MCU. You know what I mean? Where it like kind of follows the camera as it like turns, like almost like a Metroid Prime type thing. But in a movie, it's like, damn, they really nailed this visual language. I love the spaghetti being like, this is what it looks like when a timeline disappears, being separate from the blip or snap that we've seen of like the either disappearing or reforming of the ramifications of the Infinity Gauntlet, but it's just really cool.
Yeah, I would love to see the behind the scenes stuff of the different versions of, because I'm sure that was the biggest one of just like, how do we make this different from the snap? It is the same moment essentially, but it is a completely different foe, and the reason why they're disappearing. But yeah, the having it kind of match the branch timelines and all that is really smart. And I've just been blown away by the artistic choices, visual effects choices, especially with the time slipping. Like, oh my God, it is so violent. It is so violent. It gets a visceral reaction out of me every time, and it looks
It's not that bad,
perfect.
It's not that bad.
Hey, so I want to talk about the time slipping a little bit. Because this is where I need to lean on y'all.
Oh.
I'm a little unclear on it. Because, and whatever, maybe the answer is it's not clear. But why is Loki time slipping?
That's a good question.
Like, why only Loki? Like,
Yeah.
Because any time I start going down a path of, it's because he's in the wrong timeline or whatever, it's like, well, so is Sylvie.
Yeah. And also, why does Sylvie remember everything? Have we talked about that?
That's what. Yeah. Like, I feel like it's kind of aligned in the same thing. Well, actually, no. Sylvie's good because she's padding around.
Oh.
She didn't get reset.
Gotcha. So before it happened, she just went boop boop and just ran away. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
But because she still has He Who Remains pad.
Yeah.
Which is like the advanced one or whatever.
Interesting.
But like Loki time slipping, it's like, and there might just be a simple answer, but it was 5 weeks ago, so I don't remember. But yeah, it's cool and I love it and it's hype that he now kind of has that ability. But I'm like, but why is it happening to him?
Yeah, I mean, maybe it has something to do with when the explosion of all the timelines, maybe he slipped and didn't realize it or something like that, and he was supposed to get taken somewhere else. That's the only thing I can think of, but that doesn't even make any sense. But also, none of this makes sense. So.
I mean, honestly, they're talking about the making sense part.
Yeah.
It's like the time coordinates and like we're all in the same room together, something will happen. I'm like, good for you guys.
Yeah, sure, you guys are doing it, and they do that. I love it.
So no one has like a definitive reason why, but there's a really good theory that it's being controlled purposely by somebody else. And like, so maybe it's not him learning to control it at the end of it, but like whoever's controlling him figuring out how to control it. So there's an interesting theory there. But yeah, as of right now, we don't have like a definitive answer to why.
Interesting. Yeah.
I mean, that is interesting. Let's think about that for a second.
I mean, it seems like it's coming within him though. So maybe it is him controlling himself.
I think that's
right?
the at this point the easiest answer I would say is it is Loki. Loki's going to become the new He Who Remains. Loki's going to like start taking control over this and affecting.
But could it be like a version of him controlling himself? And he's like connecting to that version. Like he's finding.
You know who's a version of him?
Who?
Sylvie.
Oh.
Like, what if it's not Loki who becomes He Who Remains, but the person who killed the former He Who Remains? She Who Remains.
That could be interesting. I do want to give a shout out though to the name, He Who Remains. Can you really kill him? You know what I mean? Like it's kind of in the name. So
there was that whole plan he had.
Yeah.
Whatever that was.
Yeah, we're not ending the season without a big Kang thing.
No, straight up.
There has to be. There's not going to be a big question mark. No, it's going to be. There's going to be some version of like, okay, actually, no, this has been all his plan. This has been something that you accidentally let him out again. So we're not ending the season with that. But I think that there might be maybe a false start for Loki of thinking that he is the actual one that did this all. But then we do the big reveal of like, oh my God, it was actually Kang the entire time.
Agatha.
Yeah.
Agatha
Finally,
all
oh my
along,
God,
baby.
finally.
What else do I got here? Any notes? I feel pretty good about that. Like we kind of got through everything.
Yeah.
Again, great episode, man. Lot of humor. Love the humor.
Was
in
the
show.
pie gone when he went
It
into the
was.
pie room? All
It
the pie was
was.
gone, or was it just turned off? Like, was the lights just turned off? Because like that was a big pop when I turned to Leanne. I was like, I think all the pie's gone, and she was just like, what? Like that was her cue of like shit's fucking going
Oh,
crazy.
no.
Oh no, the pie.
Yeah, that is funny. I don't know. I mean, obviously that room has to mean something. I was watching I think it was a New Rockstars video that was kind of breaking down the map of the TVA and how, we don't have enough information to actually understand everything, but how interesting it is. And this episode even actually plays with this, that everything's a circle.
Yeah.
The amount of times they're running in a hallway and it's just like a circle and it's layers of a circle, but it seems to all surround that pie room.
Yeah, interesting.
And every time characters are in that pie room in this season, it's them kind of being really introspective and like talking about where they're at.
Yeah.
in the story. Like, I don't know what that means. I don't know what's going on.
The other question I have, and maybe you guys already addressed this when I was a million miles away mentally. Did you all notice like cups kept going missing?
No.
So when Sylvie orders shots for her and Loki, she takes a shot of her bourbon or whatever it is, but then his shot glass is gone. And then in the record store, the shopkeep, he had a cup of coffee, and then when he reached for his coffee mug, the mug was gone, but then the coffee was the thing that was like doing the weird time slipping stuff. But if it was just these things time slipping or whatever, the spaghettification or whatever, I feel like we would have seen those as well being spaghettified, but we don't. Like, there are very deliberate moments where they just disappear.
So, this is very interesting.
Yeah.
I do think it is just them not showing us the spaghetti, but it was happening off camera.
But like the spaghetti thing, like they don't, it's not like the spaghetti stuff like dissolves. Like we see it like kind of continue for like a very weird elongated time. So I feel like that'd be a weird choice
or something. Yeah.
Yeah.
But what is interesting is last episode, I want to say, yes, where Victor Timely was like fascinated by the hot chocolate machine.
Yeah.
Right.
He was at the machine, and I saw somebody tweet this. I think it was MT talking about how interesting it is that was the first time in the show that he didn't stutter, talking about the machine. And I don't know what that implies, but my take on it was he's just fascinated by the technology.
Yeah.
Like that, like, oh my God, there's this thing that can do this. That's crazy. But he was acting a little weird, but he's a weird acting guy. So I don't know. But turning around to that TVA agent that ends up getting pruned from the back by Rafa.
Yeah.
And then the hot chocolate kind of falling there and all that. Like, there's something with drinks in the show that they're like bringing a lot of attention to.
Yeah. God, it's like Breaking Bad all over again, Roger. Like everything means like everything else, you know?
Yeah, exactly. But then actually, like all of our theories actually might mean something for this one. You know what I mean? Like Breaking Bad, it's like it didn't really mean much, but like there was that one thing I want to also bring up. So we were just talking about it was when he when he accidentally time slipped into the TVA room, which was like
the theater room.
Yeah, so that was the theater. We've been there before. When he saw himself, like does that mean anything? Is that something? Do you think that is like somewhere he needs to go back again, or is that just?
The fact that was one of the only places we saw him jump to.
Yeah.
That I mean, it has to mean something, right? Because every other place was him. Like, all right. There's so much going on to keep track of in my mind here. I just really broke for a second. Everywhere he went. So the dumb rules about the time coordinates being related to people that he knows and his friends and things like that.
Yeah.
From our understanding of Loki's new time slip abilities, even as powerful as they are at the end of this episode, where it's like he can travel time and space without the time stone or the space stone, he can just fucking do it.
Yeah.
He can only do it to places he's emotionally connected to via somebody, right?
Yeah.
Like, that's kind of how they set it up.
Yeah.
So if we take that knowledge and apply it to what we've seen here, it's like, all right, cool. All the branch timelines they went to were him connecting with his human friends that we've seen so far. That time theater is the only place that isn't that's not true.
Yeah.
Unless it's somebody that we're not thinking about.
Like, but it could be like, remember, like all of the emotionally resonant things of like Loki's past that we associate with is stuff that this Loki didn't experience. And that is the room where he watched like his father die, his mother die, himself die. So maybe that's like the weird emotional connection where that's where he watched like what his life was supposed to be. I'm just spitballing though.
But what's the connection then to a person? Because they were talking about a person in a physical space, right?
Yeah, that's true.
This is me getting like super off the rocker. Like I don't even like. I feel like the logic of what I'm saying already falls apart.
Yeah, but I mean, no, we're on to something here. I mean,
Yeah.
there has to be some meaning. I mean, could it be something that just hasn't even happened?
So that's my thing. Is I would say my present theory on this is. And this is wild, I haven't thought about this till right now. I'm like, maybe this could happen. If Loki becomes the new He Who Remains, maybe at some point Loki and He Who Remains actually link up.
Yeah.
And it becomes a kind of like they are working together in the same way that Victor Timely and OB are working together via time shenanigans, maybe Loki and He Who Remains are also doing it, and potentially this theater room could be him and He Who Remains, because He Who Remains was the one that put him on the path to there, but he wasn't in the room, so I don't know. I don't know.
Yeah, and I feel like He Who Remains would have mentioned something a little bit more coy of like the fact that we're gonna always work together or something like that. Like I didn't get that vibe from him, or maybe I'm misremembering.
That's the problem. Is the finale last season was 45 minutes of them talking. So I don't remember every single thing they said, and I've already been constantly blown away by the amount of lines they brought back of him, like just every little thing that he said and did somehow comes back. And I love the "I'll see you soon" line.
That's true.
Which, like, the crazy thing about the "I'll see you soon" thing is that was scary in the finale last time because we know him as Kang. Now with where we're at, Quantumania, with the fucking MCU and all that stuff, it's like that feels a little bit less scary.
Yeah.
But remember when they found the 3 robot heads that they thought were the timekeepers? When they killed those things, one of them echoed out its final death line was "See you soon."
Yeah.
And so, like, there's something about that "see you soon" that I think is going to keep coming back in unexpected ways. So, again, I don't know how that connects, but, like, they're definitely building up that He Who Remains has a plan that is still happening. This is some Saw shit, all right? This is some John Kramer shit.
Yeah, I mean, well, so going back to that theater room, I mean, I'm looking back at it, like the first episode we were there, right? Like that was where him and Mobius's connection kind of started.
Happened, yeah.
So that would be my easy, like, hey, we don't need to explain anything really. It's just that was where his connection started with this man. So maybe it's so powerful that, whatever. But I don't know.
And again, time and place.
Yeah, exactly.
Timeline shit. That could make sense. It's just the fact that we also sent him to Ohio.
Yeah.
Makes it a little bit like less clear to me of like why they would do that. Also, shout out to when Loki, one of the shots when he time slipped and did the hair flip like always.
Yeah.
The inflatable tube man behind him.
I hated it so
I fucking
much.
love it.
Oh, that was so good.
It was
Come on,
so
Roger.
goofy, dude. It was like, but it was like so on the nose. I was like, oh god, I get it, but like,
Come on.
You know what else I
Come
love?
on, Roger. If you were one of the production people on that,
Oh yeah, I would be the one like being like, we have to
Suggesting-
do it,
yeah.
right? Yeah, I would be yelling at people, putting my career on the line.
Yeah, no, my favorite thing was the TVA. He's like, oh, ATVs. Yeah, we got some of them. Hilarious. So damn good.
So fun.
All right, so let's end the Loki talk real quick with theories for next week. I know we talked a lot about them. Do you have any just crazy ass shit?
I mean, my craziest one would just be like, we're just restart. Like this whole season was just a setup for them to just go back to season 1 and just go, vroom, and then we're back at the beginning of season, or the ending of season 1, and we start at that He Who Remains thing, and then we just turn. We just turn to a different direction from that that point, and then the next season is okay. Well, we had that growth for Loki. Now we got to kind of just settle down and figure out what that next thing is. But I don't think they'll do that. That is my craziest idea here. But I think they're just going to. It's just going to be Kang all along. All along.
Yeah. I think it's going to be Loki, but I'm with you that there's going to be a twist after that. Like I'm with you that like He Who Remains. I think He Who Remains somehow. And
is it He Who Remains, or is it a variant, or is it Timely?
I think it's man.
The Timely of it all is the interesting part.
Again, the Timely and Obi of it all. Like those two characters being like connected to all of this, but they're also connected to Loki, which is the interesting thing. I don't fucking know. We'll have to see. But me just throwing some shit out there of potential, like, oh my God, this is going to be wild. Deadpool.
Fuck.
Deadpool's now, like, we know the TVA is in.
Yeah.
I don't think he's going to show up in the episode, but like a post-credit thing. And
of like, someone being pruned or whatever. And it's like, oh my God.
I should have learned by this point that like they don't do that. But they did with Captain Marvel in the Marvels.
They did.
Deadpool, parts of it are shot.
Yeah, a lot of it shot.
It's like they could do it. We know the TVA is in that movie.
Yeah.
So that could be interesting for them to do something. Like, goddamn, would that not be the most hyped thing ever?
Yeah. I think it's past 50% that happens. I think I think that's going to happen.
I'm at 20%.
If I were to bet money, the more you talk about, like, yeah, that makes so much sense. They've already filmed that movie for the most part, right? Like I could totally have been like, yeah, I mean, Loki's coming out. Like, why not? We got to do something. Yeah.
I think it would be kind of fun. I mean, really fun. I feel like that'd be like awesome and really, really exciting and get people going for the future of the MCU, whatever that means. But okay, cool. Speaking of the future of MCU, real quick.
Yep.
Echo. We just saw the trailer. It's coming out 5 episodes all at once. It's a first for many firsts for the MCU Disney Plus shows. It's rated MA, so you actually
Did we know this?
there's been a lot of rumors, and Disney Plus did add all the Netflix shows, Daredevil, and all those things. So though the systems already existed, but this is the first Marvel Studios project that's rated mature audiences.
That makes sense.
5 episodes, not 6, and they're all coming out at once, which is going to be a first for them. And on top of that, it's also coming to Hulu. So it's not just Disney Plus.
Interesting.
A lot of interesting stuff. Early January is the date. And then we saw the trailer. And I got to say, I'm kind of in.
Yeah. I did not expect this to look so much like a season 4 of Daredevil. Like, this is just so, like, Netflix Marvel coded, and I'm just over the moon for that. Like, that's all I've wanted. I honestly did not expect Marvel to do this to this level. And I've heard those rumors too, of like, oh, maybe it's TVMA or whatever. But like, I didn't expect them to actually do it, and for this to look as violent as it looks. Like, hell yeah.
I'm so with you. Now, I will say, we've been burned by trailers before.
That's true.
We've seen Moon Knight, we've seen Secret Invasion, we've seen stuff that like kind of hints at being grounded and hints at being this and that, and then ends up being kind of whatever. But those weren't TVMA.
Yeah.
And in this trailer, we see some real violent stuff. And not that violence is the answer, but I am very excited that this seems to be a Kingpin story as much as it is an Echo story. And those characters are intrinsically related. But I like that it's clearly a sequel to Hawkeye, where we're dealing with Kingpin post-gunshot to the eye. Which like and him having the messed up face at the end of the trailer. I'm like, I'm here for this stuff, man.
Yeah.
And Daredevil pops up for a second. It's like, all right.
Yeah, I cannot get over the all at once drop a little bit of like, what is the strategy behind that? Is that them just thinking this is the perfect time to do it, or is there something behind that of like, maybe it's not that good?
Okay, it's a mix of two things. I think it's both.
Really?
Yeah. So all reports of Echo so far have been
Really?
It's
Okay.
not that great. But that's been like those type of reports are so inconsistent and like the good, the bad, it almost doesn't matter. And like it comes down to the wire in terms of editing and cutting and stuff. And like at some point an episode got cut, which I think is a good thing overall for this. And I think this is them looking at it and being like, some shows are week to week and some shows are binge. And if we put this out week to week, people are going to be pissed.
Yeah.
I think that this is the ultimate move for the show. I still don't have full faith it's going to be the best thing ever, and I think it's going to upset a lot of people. But it's also giving so many vocal people exactly what they want, which is a Netflix Daredevil-style show, potentially.
Yeah.
And I think that the binge model for it, especially it being 5 episodes, I'm very intrigued by this. I hope that it works out for them. And I love that Loki's weekly. I'm a weekly guy. I think weekly is always better than binge for a multitude of reasons. But when it comes to Echo, with where we're at in the MCU currently, I think binge is the right move.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there are definitely some shows that I would look back on, especially with like honestly, I think Hawkeye should have just been a binge. Like there's some shows that I'm just like binge, not binge, binge, not binge. So I hope that this works, because I think it will work, of just like having it out there and just people watching it like, oh, this is not bad. Oh, I didn't expect anything from it. And then just getting into it. I hope that they take the right lessons from this and not just kind of throw it to the things that they're like, I don't know if this is going to do well. Binge, whatever. Like, I hope that maybe like a bigger show, bigger quote unquote, that they're doing, I don't know, whatever that would be in the Disney Marvel pipeline, kind of go that direction.
Yeah. I mean, hopefully we're at a turning point now where we're not getting whatever shows anymore.
Sure, yeah.
And like, I really think that the Marvels is going to come out and Echo's going to come out. And then we're in a whole new world of Marvel Studios. And I think nothing is promised after this.
Wonder Man is a big question mark.
That's a huge
even
question.
Happening.
I mean, Wonder Man was never officially announced.
Really?
Yeah. So it's like that's where we're at.
They're
right
just
now.
cutting their losses there. They're like, yeah, okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, so we'll see where things go. Let us know in the comments below what you thought of Loki episode 5, what you thought of the Echo trailer, what your theories are for the finale, which we will be talking about next week. I will be assembling all of my time coordinate friends together. Me, Roger, Joey, and Blessing. You know what? I might hit a Matt Rohrbeck too. That would be fun because then we get like the whole everybody that's been a part of this season. I'm gonna hit him up for that, see if he's down. But that'll be fun. And then MCU in review with the whole crew in a few weeks after the Marvels next week. It's going to be a marvelous time. But until next time, thank you for joining me, Raj. Thank you for your music tidbits, Barrett. I love you all.